Hello, this is Paul, and I'm with the First Church of the Brethren, and this is in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We have a program going on where we offer free computers to those who come to 10 different classes there, get verified, and be able to receive it comes to a system unit, a monitor of some sort, whatever we have available, and be able to give you a keyboard and a mouse. Now, in a recent talk with the Customer Care Service Center, they said, and I quote, "You don't believe how many people call us up for help and is unable to use the mouse." Well, this is lesson 2, and this is about the use of the mouse. And it might be very general to a lot of people, but hang with me and maybe you'll be able to pick up on a couple things. Now, first of all, I want to talk to you about is that we have had a mouse around for quite some time now, but there was a time that there was no mouse. And this is a display here of what is very common to a mouse. And take notice that many people are able to recognize a couple very simple points on the mouse, which has a left and a right button and a wheel on it, but there are other factors involved. Now, this is a picture of one of the first experimental mice that was created, and it was back in 1972. And can you imagine that we were going that direction that early in time? In an earlier class, I talked to you about how UNIVAC was the very first computer that was housed in a very large building and very limited in use. And today we enjoy having a monitor and the keyboard, the mouse, and storage capacity, and this is something that is something we cannot vision that computer. There was a time that none of these conveniences were there. Well, the mouse has become very popular, and without a mouse, people think the computer will never work. So what we're looking at here is what a mouse is. Let's take a look at the inside of a mouse and take notice that there are different parts of the mouse inside. I do want to point out that we had somebody in the class that they had a big complaint about their mouse. It was working fine, and all at once it's not working at all anymore. So what we did was we explained the answer to that question with what this lesson is about. Take notice that there are 3 contacts where a ball rides on inside of the mouse, and I point them out, 1, 2, 3, and be able to have them when you open the mouse, there's a collar around the bottom. When you turn it to the left, it will unlock and you can turn it over and just pop it into your hand. Looking inside, you'll be able to see these 3 wheels. Well, as you know, there's a lot of fine debris on your desktop, or even using a mouse pad, it will collect some debris as well. But this has to be cleaned out on a regular basis. And one of the biggest problems with the manufacturers and help centers and everything, people don't like to clean this part of the mouse. They don't even think about it. They sit down and start using the mouse, and it's supposed to work, and all at once it doesn't. Well, as you know, with people walking around with the presence of cooking in the home and everything, grease and grime will get on these little wheels and be able to collect. And when they get a thick band there, which is picking it up from the table, and be able to have to scrape it off, it gets that hard. When they build up like this, it prevents the wheels from working properly, The mouse might become jittery on the screen and be able to have a problem. With this, I see people pick up the mouse and try to move it and move it and move it and get very aggravated because it's not working properly. Well, it's a very easy thing. Now, on this slide, there is also where the wheel protrudes coming down. And take notice that there is a small spring on one side of it that keeps the tension so it doesn't keep on just spinning in your hand when you give it a touch with your finger. And with that in mind, some mice might have a spring on both sides. Well, be aware that when you get a mouse, some of them might have what is called a tilt wheel, and it'll cause the operation of the mouse to work from left to right instead of just scrolling up and down. Another thing I want to show you on here that as you can see, there is a circuit board there with chips on it, and just a couple chips, but with each action in the mouse, it is translated to what is called binary code, and is translated and sent on to the motherboard inside the system unit, and it is able to respond. Now on this next slide, we have a couple buttons on top that will enable you to use as a matter of making selections of either something to for the machine to respond to be able to open a file, or to open a program, or play music, or whatever you wish to do on your computer. Well, when I say click, when anybody says that I need to click on something, unless your machine is reset to a left-handed person, it will always mean a single click of the left button. Now, when we say double click or click 2 times, it means that that left button is going to be used very quickly, 2 taps with your index finger. Now, this means that when you do those double clicks, you're going to try to do it with a very rapid tap tap. I like to say boom boom in the class, and I usually get a laugh out about that. But, you know, that's the response that we're looking to do. We're looking to produce a very quick succession in less than a second, and it will be able to give activity on an icon on the desktop. Now, just to let you know that an icon on the desktop is the little picture that represents a program or a file or whatever the case may be, that different functions. For example, one of them is for my computer. Now, you do not double click or click on the words, because then you'll go into a function that will cause you to be able to change the name of that program, or to change the name of the file that is represented on the desktop. Sometimes this might be desirable, that it would bring better meaning to what is being presented on your desktop, so you might want to do that from time to time, but when you select this to be able to open it, you do not click on the words. Now, as you realize, there is also a right button, and the original configuration of the mouse remains that when I say right click, for a left-handed person that the mouse is turned around, it means the opposite, but that means that a left-handed person would click on the right with their middle finger. And I'm going to be showing you how to hold the mouse that your fingers will respond very naturally. So what happens when I tell you to use the right click on the mouse? It will always bring up a menu. Now, this menu is something that will happen And whether if you're inside a program or on the desktop or anywhere, it is very universal for you to be able to expect that to happen. When I use, say, right click, there is no such thing as a double right click. It will always bring up a menu, and then when you make a selection on that menu, you will then respond with a left click to make that selection. So be aware of this. Now, in the center, there is a wheel. We'll be talking more about that wheel, but it will be able to allow you to scroll up and down on a screen when the display is greater than what can be viewed on a single screen. In other words, if you are on a word processor and the page on there is longer than what's displayed, it'll tend to scroll down line for line, but you can use that wheel to scroll back up and see what's on the top of that document. Likewise, when you go on the web, many pages are bigger than what the screen will present, and you'll be able to scroll up and down just by moving the wheel up and down. Now, one thing I also showed in the class is how you're able to use a combination of keys with your wheel by using the control key on the keyboard. When you hold this control key down and you're in a document on the web or whatever it may be, very often when you use the wheel, it will enlarge the size of the image on the screen or reduce it. So it will be able to give you another function of the movement of the wheel on the mouse. When you hold down the Shift key, and this mouse is not a tilt mouse, then it will scroll left to right. When the screen is not able to display images from with a whole image on the screen and it spills over to the left or right, you can use the Shift key along with the wheel, and it'll scroll from left to right, just the same as when you leave everything else alone and use the wheel, it'll go up and down. So there is good functions there. In the classroom, we do get into activity where we play around with this idea and how to get it to do this, and most people become very surprised about this. Now, some of the mice might have a button on the side. Now, with different mice, there is multiple things that might take place with the mouse and be able to give a different result. Now, if there are two buttons on the side, it might be on the left side of the mouse and be able to use a front button and a rear button. And basically, they are used for on the web that when you go from one page to another, you can page forward and back. Sometimes these buttons are on opposite sides of the button, and you'll use the left side and the right side for going forward and backwards. Basically, these buttons are very often able to be reconfigured to mean something different and be able to get some other uses out of your mouse as well. The button that I have here on my mouse has only one button on the left, and when I press that one on the left, it turns on a magnifier, or if I tap it again, it might turn off that magnifier. These buttons, like I said before, is totally able to be reconfigured for whatever you want it to be. Now, with this in mind, I would like to take you into the classroom. The quality might be a little bit different in my sound and everything, but bear with me. I would like to show you what it means to be able to use your mouse properly, how to hold it in your hand and be able to get natural use out of this.
Okay, what I'd like to do at this time is I'd like to discuss what I've seen over the past couple of years since I've been teaching in this room. And what people have been doing is, there's a lot of different extremes. And the first thing, I'm not going to point at anybody, but I've had people say that they have identified with many of the things that I show. One thing I see is with the women. Oh boy, they get into a lot of beautiful nails. I mean, the price they paid for them, and they do show it. So with that in mind, you know, they come in, I call it a spider fashion, where they come down on the mouse and be able to move the mouse around and try to get it going the way they want it. But take notice, I grab the mouse randomly. And when I want to make a left click or a right click, man, it's hard to find. So this is not really the right way to do it. The next thing I'd like to talk to you about is the sporty men. Okay, the sporty men, they get into they're in the surge. You know, they're coming in with their B-29s or 25s or whatever size the bombers are, and they're coming in for the kill. When they're coming in, and all of a sudden there comes the lights coming up, and they're spotted, and their rockets coming up in the air. So then you've got to dive in to be able to get the target you're looking for, and they miss it. You know, they're not even handling the mouse properly. Another person, now I want to sit down here, and you know, they're trying to use the mouse the best way they can, and man, they run out of space, and they pick up the mouse and they drop it down, and they're smacking things. Man, I think they're angry at the computer, and you know, the computer is just sitting there doing its thing. That's what computers do. Well, I'd like to show you the proper way of holding the mouse, okay? And one thing I want you to do is first realize you've got to get the tension that is in you out. Sometimes I might even just take a deep breath and relax. Okay? And what we're doing is we are going to just take hold of the mouse in a very natural way. Take notice of how I have my mouse. Do you see where the palm of my hand is? It is on the back, on the table. It is on a solid foundation. Now take notice on my thumb, it is on the one side there in a very natural position along with the tabletop. When I go over to my ring finger, it's on the other side. In other words, that mouse is in the palm of my hand. The palm of my hand is holding the back of the mouse. And what we're doing is we are resting our pointer finger on the left button. And on the right button, I have my middle finger is resting on that button. And when I want to use the mouse and I say click, I will click the left button, but all I'm thinking about is using my pointer finger. I'm not thinking about left and right now. I hear click, and I'm going to use my pointer finger. And when I say right click, I am automatically using my middle finger. I don't even have to look at the mouse to do this. And what I do is, take notice, my pointer finger is the most flexible finger. I can move it around very loosely and rest it on the wheel and be able to operate the wheel. I'm able to do this without looking at it. And one thing I want you to realize is I'm going to move it around as a solid unit. My hand glides on the table instead of trying to zip it around in a fashion from the air. It is grounded on the table, nice and smooth. Now what I want you to realize that as I move this around freely, I am not taking a lot of movement from my wrist. You know, one thing I want you to realize that as a typist, it's number one in the nation that it is going to cause carpal tunnel with the movement of your wrist as you type. Well, the same thing is true as you use it on your mouse. You don't want it up high where there's a lot of movement of your wrist, because after a period of time, your wrist is going to be painful. And if you do it properly, it'll keep you from getting carpal tunnel. Number two is with chefs or cooks in the kitchen, moving their hands around, and how we use the knives by chopping very quickly. Carpal tunnel gets in your wrist. Yes, you might have to get some kind of operation to relieve it, but most often it even returns. So there is good health habits here to maintain your wrist, that it's not going to be need of any kind of assistance from a doctor. This is serious stuff. And if you learn to use the mouse properly, you will be able to use it over a long period of time without any pain.
So there you have it. This is a basic use of your mouse that you can relax and be able to get a lot of use out of it very calmly. And yes, it's a way of stressing that we need to get the very stress in our body out of us and calm down. Your computer is much more friendly. At least they develop it to be more friendly with each edition that is brought out in Windows. And as we progress to Windows 7 and now Windows 8 is out, and the main attempt is to make it as easy as possible. And if you have the same attitude with your mouse, you will be able to accomplish much work on your computer, play many games, and also make use of the web as you desire very easily and quickly. Well, this is the end of this part, and in part 2 we're going to learn how to make shortcuts on your computer to be able to open files that you use all the time or make reference to very quickly, and you'll be able to recognize how they are stored or kept as a shortcut on the desktop. So with that, I invite you to move on to Chapter 2. This is Paul Jones. I am in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I invite you to join our classes if you possibly can, if you're in the local area. And also, I have announced recently that it is very possible to have webinars going out and being able to have meetings over the web, and that could involve people from around the world. Many different cultures are in our class, and it is very interesting to learn of different people and how we are able to learn together, respect one another, and get a lot out of it. Thank you very much.